Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this special emergency episode of the Exiles Network News Podcast. Today is a day for celebration. This is a different episode entirely. I don't even know where to start, where to go. We're just going to dive right into it. You clicked on the link, so you know what it is. It's a celebration of a journey that has gone on for about 2.5 years. A lot of blood, sweat, tears, passions, dreams, hard work of so many people all around the world unite into one cause. And it's 4 words: release the Snyder Cut. And today, official word has been handed down that the Snyder Cut is coming out. It's a great day. And so today we're going to react to the news. We're going to reminisce about the journey. And we also have a very special guest who's going to give us some incredible insight and a different point of view to the whole experience. So, you guys know me. I am yours truly, Lupe, and I'm joined by a select group of individuals who have been very close to the movement. These are your Film Exiles. Let's start with Paul. Paul, would you like to say hello to the people?
Yep. Hello, everyone. What a great day. It's surreal, and I can't wait to talk with you guys about it. It's been a long time coming, and wow, it's finally here.
Welcome on board, Paul. And next up, we have our very own Dr. Chris. Chris, what's up? Say hello to the people.
Hello, everyone. I'm stunned. It's been a long journey, such a great day, and I'm so happy to share it with all of you.
Nice. And we also have one of our very own Film Exiles. You've heard him on several film reviews. You've seen his contributions on our Twitter page and online. It's Brandon. Hey, Brandon, what's up?
Hey, I'm just happy to be here. The only one actually from Smallville, Kansas. Not to rub that into anybody else, but I'm definitely more excited here in the hometown of Superman than anyone else.
Welcome, brother. We feel you. We feel you. And our Wonder Woman, our shining light, truth, love, and the American way. It's Adrian. Hey, Adrian.
Hi, everybody. I'm so happy to be here on this historic day, making cinematic history. And all I got to say is victory is sweet.
Yes, it is. It's sweeter than candy. All right. And we also have Manu, our ride or die brother from our sister podcast. He's one of us. He's comes on the channel a lot. You guys, you know him. Manu, say hello to the people.
Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm usually someone who's very talkative, but not today. Like I feel like I don't have any words. I'm just speechless, and man, it's just been a great day, honestly.
Just what you want to hear when someone's on a podcast that they have no words to say.
I'm sorry, I can't help it. Like it's just, dude, 2.5 years, like in the trenches. Yeah. It hasn't been easy. It's just amazing.
All right, we'll get into it. Save all your emotions and your passions. We're getting to it in a little bit, and we saved the best for last. I think I have to clear my voice, and I have to do this like with a special, ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the podcast, a special guest, a friend of the podcast, someone who has inspired us, who has given us energy to run this marathon. We couldn't have done it without him. We have Ray Porter. Ray Porter, welcome to the podcast. Say hello to the audience.
How's everybody doing today? I'm doing pretty good, I must say. What an amazing thing to celebrate with everybody. Having been on this journey in a slightly different room, it's so incredible seeing all the celebration and how happy everybody is. And I'm so pleased for a lot of reasons, one of which I can finally officially say, yes, I played Darkseid in the Justice League.
Woo! Woo! Yeah.
So, yes.
All right. So I just want to start with a brief overview. I want each of you to tell the audience how you got into this movement, just in a few brief words, and what your experience has been. You don't need to give us all the beats and every single thing that's happened, because we can go on and on forever. But just quickly tell us, how you came into the movement and how you're feeling today. I will start selfishly. So for me, I've been a fan of Zack Snyder's for a very, very long time. I grew up reading comic books, and so coming into the DCEU, I was the perfect person, the perfect audience member. And I love that the DCEU, was offering something different from the usual, comic book movies. Long story short, Man of Steel came out. Great movie. It's a people's champ, but it was quite divisive. Batman v Superman came out. It was even more divisive. And because of this and studio pressure, it led to, our issues with Snyder being sort of like removed and his vision being sidetracked or hijacked, depending on what story you believe. And I experienced all of this firsthand. A lot of people are experts in things, or have hobbies. Maybe you play the guitar, or, along with your day job, you draw, you paint. My hobby was movies, following films very closely, and I experienced every single news article, every single tweet, every single, event. I followed it so closely, so I knew exactly what was going on. It was an injustice, and the passion within me just bubbled to the brim, and I had all this energy to get, the Snyder cut out. And that's, where my passion comes from. And it's been 2.5 long years of constant work, constant attention, constant passion given of ourselves, physically, financially, emotionally. And I've met so many great people along the way from all over the world. I must admit that this is not something I thought would come to fruition in 2.5 years, as long as that sounds to some people. I thought it would take about 10 years. And I remember having a conversation with Chris. Chris, you remember this conversation where I told you, I said, I don't want to burn myself out. I think this is going to take like 20 years, but I'm going to be here. Believe you me. And Chris said, no, it's going to take a few years. And he said it with such certainty and faith that it gave me wings. I was like, if anyone can believe something so strongly like this, then I have to believe it too. And here we are today,
That's right.
celebrating the impossible. So that's my brief background into this. I would like to hand it over to Paul. Paul, tell us a little bit about your experience with this.
Yeah, so I guess I was a little bit of a late joiner to the party. I've been a fan of movies my whole life. I wouldn't call myself a cinephile by any means, but they've always been a big part of my life. And I really enjoyed comic book movies for a long time. And at some point, I just kind of lost interest in the genre. So when Batman vs Superman came out in 2016, I heard the reviews. I didn't see it in theaters, and I just moved on. And then when the Ultimate Edition came out, I thought, you know what? I'm going to give this a chance. I used to love this genre. It's not really for me anymore, but I'm going to check this out. And when I saw that movie, it blew me away and brought my love back for those type of films. And I just couldn't believe how great it was, and I couldn't reconcile that with what the narrative was publicly. And from that moment on, when I heard there was a Justice League movie coming, and to that point, I mean, I think I might have been generally aware, but it just wasn't big on my radar until I saw the Ultimate Edition of BVS, and that I just couldn't wait for this film. And I just remember the anticipation. And I was more of a YouTube guy. I didn't have a social media presence. I'd go watch videos on YouTube. Wasn't active on Twitter. And then when we saw that movie on November 16th, I had a friend from Montreal come into Toronto and a friend from Florida come into Toronto. And, they kind of coordinated around that time, and we went to see that opening night. And I just remember watching it going, something's not right here, and there were some things that were more obviously not right than others. And then I remember going out for a drink after and kind of trying to convince ourselves that it was okay, but knowing deep down it wasn't. And then I think it was maybe 3 or 4 days later, I'd seen a video on the deleted scenes. It was on Emergency Awesome, and I actually just went back and watched it a couple of days ago. And I just remember thinking, that's the movie I wanted to see. That's the Snyder movie I thought we were getting. And then I saw Fiona's tweet that day and the petition and realized, hey, there's a chance. This could actually happen. And from that moment, I was hooked. And here we are, 2.5 years later, I converted my Twitter account from a personal account into what's essentially a 95% Snyder Cut account, and that's it. I mean it's been a huge part of my life ever since, and my wife will be probably glad to have me back now.
Yeah, I can attest to that, guys. ENN is a podcast where we discuss like a myriad of questions of variety, but I'm telling you, every single podcast, Paul made sure we talked about the Snyder Cut for like 50% of the time. It was a running joke, and
I was biting my tongue, Lupe.
it was our contribution to keeping it in the zeitgeist, keeping the passion, burning, and keeping the fire, burning. So, Chris, the floor is yours. Please tell us your experience with the fandom in some brief words.
Right, so I'll condense it down to about 60 seconds because I don't want to go on for too long. Essentially, when that Darkseid, ironically, storyboard was dropped on Fiona's website, it was coming up to the 6-month anniversary, let's say, of the theatrical release of Justice League, and that really lit a fire under me, and it got me angry. I took it personally that this studio did this to us. These fans who stood by BVS for so long and defended BVS and defended Zack and defended Warner Brothers product, I felt slighted personally. So I always looked at this thing from a social point of view rather than a cinematic point of view. And yeah, it was basically just a reinforcement of my personal ideals as well. I feel this journey has been proof that when you come together, when ordinary people come together and work as one, they can overcome incredible odds and they can achieve anything, and that's what we've done. So that's just my feelings on it and where I came from my position and why I got involved.
Nice. Very inspirational. So, Brandon, tell us about your experience with the Snyder Cut campaign.
I mean, it's just like many other people. Yeah, I loved Man of Steel. I was excited for Batman v Superman. Liked the theatrical cut, but it did feel choppy. There was things that just didn't make much sense, like Superman not having any dialogue. But within days, they had announced an ultimate cut was coming out, and that told me right up front that the studio made those cuts immediately because they already had an extended cut planned for it. And ever since then, I've watched that movie, the ultimate cut, probably once a month. It is just a wonderfully deep film. There's so much more in it, and it just proves that comic book movies can be completely different than what anybody expects. But as I got closer to Justice League, obviously all the news came out about Zack leaving and Joss taking over, and then Danny Elfman coming in, and something wasn't right, but I still wanted to have faith in it. And then I went on November 17th to go see the movie in IMAX, and I have never walked out of a movie as disappointed in my life. Wow. It was not what was promised, even in the final trailer 6 weeks before. Mm-hmm. That was not the movie that was sold to me, and I knew something was up. And my first exposure to the group was obviously the petition on change.org, and then the picture of the people standing out in front of Warner Brothers with the hashtag. And then from there, I got back into Twitter. First thing I did was block my dad, and And then, yeah, I mean, it just started with using the hashtag and talking about the movie and things like that. And then randomly one day, I saw some guy from England or Britain or wherever he's from post saying he needed help from an American about the UPS system here or USPS system here. And that was Chris. And I've spoken to him basically every day since and worked on about every project I possibly could. As far as planning and getting people involved. And then towards the end, it was me and One of our friends called Leonidas, who's not on here anymore, just rallying the troops and pushing really, really hard to get every tweet possible out there and get our voices heard by the studio. And it's just to be part of a group like this to actually achieve something and change something in the world, not only at a studio level, but to be able to be part of charity and do some good out of what is ultimately silly. But it is, it is more than that. It is artistic freedom, but, we stood for something else and put something else beside it to show that we were serious. And, I hope that we can continue with that aspect of it now that we've won one. But yeah, just to be part of all this, and then never thought that I'd be sitting here talking to a member of the cast. So here I am.
And Adrian, what about you? Tell us your story.
Well, again, I'll try to be very brief. I think my fight, of course, really began, like with so many others, in fighting for and defending BVS, just in my personal life, in my everyday real life, to my friends and family who I felt were just, absorbing a negative media message that didn't match what I saw when I sat in the theater watching BVS multiple times, and I was just absolutely riveted. I thought the quality of the film, the score, the acting, everything was just the greatest thing I'd ever seen. And I loved it so much. The themes meant so much to me that I fought for it. So then fast forward to seeing Justice League, and the continuity was messed up. It was just, a mess compared to the quality of the cinematic poetry that I felt that I was getting with Batman v Superman. So I was just upset. And I went online and found, the petition. It wasn't long before I was on Twitter, found Fiona, and then, continue to just fight and tweet, etc., and continue conversations with people. And then it was, when I saw Chris organizing things like the phone call campaign, it was like, that's what we need to do. We need to we need direct contact. We need to communicate to WB, not just talking about my friends and family and that kind of thing. We need to zero in and let the company know we want this film, that they had originally showed us in the original trailers. So it wasn't just that I wanted a movie that I liked as a fan. It was believing in the quality of the film and the quality of the people behind the film that kept me going all this time, and of course have met wonderful people in the process.
Awesome. And Manu, would you round us out?
I think, like a lot of you guys mentioned before, this all started with BVS for me, coming into that battle, that war zone, and never really having left until now. I think that, my reasons for getting into the movement were because I thought it was the right thing to do. I think that a lot of the times people forget that, as important as business is, we still have to respect and treat each other like people. And I felt that Zach was disrespected, and I felt that us as, a fandom and as people were also disrespected. So this part of this movement was about rectifying that in a way and trying to bring out the best outcome out of something that was really hurtful to a lot of people. And meeting all of these amazing people from all around the world. I mean, I think that every single one of us on this call right now met in a way because of our love for Zach and his films. Yeah. And towards the end, it became not just about releasing this for Zach, but it was for every single one of us and every one of the people that are in this movement, that donated, that gave their time, that gave their effort, that put so much passion into this. It's been 2.5 years, and they never let up. I think that it's so incredible to see so many people coming together for something that meant something to them. I think that more people should do that. I think that, it's something that we should be able to believe in.
Mm-hmm. I agree. Very well said. And so we've set the table. You guys see, these are different people who've come to this movement from different places in the world, from different places in their lives, and have bonded together. And now we will have our interview with our special guest. Ray Porter, I know you've been sitting patiently and listening to us mere humans talk about.
Oh God, yeah. Mere humans indeed. It's funny hearing everybody's origin story. It's cool. I guarantee I came to the movement the latest of anybody. I went to bed one night with 300 Twitter followers who liked audiobooks and woke up the next day to, I think, 3,000 and a message from some dude named Dr. Chris going, "Hey, you played Darkseid in the Justice League," and I immediately went into panic mode. Oh my God, I didn't say anything. I freaked out. And but for me, watching the unswerving dedication to the cause and at the same time unmitigated kindness throughout all of it has been exemplary. The general positivity that everyone has brought to this in the face of some really nasty trolls, I guess would be the term. It's exemplary. It really is. And I think that everybody who tweeted, everybody who got involved, everybody who felt the way that you all feel on this podcast and did something about it, this is a day to celebrate you. And I'm just so happy that I get to that I get to kind of sit back and applaud what everybody has done, because this really is your victory.
But to be sincere, the victory also belongs to you, because the cast and crew, the filmmakers, in whatever capacity, you have all engaged with the fandom. Without your inspiration and constant, reaching back out to us, we would not have had the feel to keep on going.
It's been a privilege. I've always believed, even back, when I was doing Shakespeare, I've always believed that the absolute least you can do when you're in a position where people clap when you're done with a performance or want to come and talk to you about a thing they saw or something like that, the absolute least you can do is stop and listen and respond and talk to people and be polite and be kind. I don't put a lot of stock in people who are like, "Oh no, I never talk to fans." Come on, why?
Why did you use a British accent for that?
Sorry, yes. No, and weirdly enough, I have to say the British actors I know are the nicest people out of the bunch. So I don't know why I did that. Sorry.
We love the humor.
I just decided to go posh.
I think he was trying to. I think he was doing Chris.
Yeah.
I was not. I can't do a good northern accent.
Because Chris definitely sounds like he doesn't talk to his fans.
Yeah.
Well, what having Zach and Ray you do for us is it humanized the fight. To naysayers and that kind of thing, could be like, oh, it's a film. It's a film is a thing. And it was like, no, we're fighting for people. This affected people's lives. It affected us. It affected you. It affected Zach. And we're fighting for people, not just a thing.
Yeah. And it has been a roller coaster, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And we've held on for dear life.
Yeah.
So we have some questions for you. We'd like to know a little bit more about you as a person. Okay. Just give us a brief autobiography, origin story of how you became this prolific voice performer. I mean, who grows up as a 5-year-old kid? It's like, I want to be a voice actor. Like,
I don't think anyone. I think if a 5-year-old child says that to you, they need testing, immediate and strict medical testing. Well, I grew up in a family of performers. I'm third generation in the business. My grandfather was with the circus. My mother was a dancer on Broadway and around the country, and it was just always something I sort of knew I wasn't going to do it. I wanted to do something else, and then I went and saw a play, this one particular production, and I was like, yeah, I'd like to do that. So majored in theater in California, worked at the Oregon Shakespeare Festival for, almost 20 years, did TV shows and things like that. in the interim, down here in LA, TV shows and films and stuff like that. And then I moved down to LA and started narrating audiobooks, and that seemed to be going fairly well. And then ended up in England because I was at the time married to someone who was working on this Zack Snyder movie, The Justice League. And I was still narrating audiobooks. While I was over there, I packed my entire studio into one giant road case and shipped it over. Thank you, Warner Brothers. And lived in England and was doing that. And then Zach heard from somebody that I narrate audiobooks, and Zach really likes to hear his scripts. Something more immediate and something more visceral when you hear the words being spoken, as opposed to just sitting and reading them on the page. So I helped in essentially narrating the scripts and some of the rewrites and things like that. And Zach and I get along really, really well. He's an amazing guy. He and Deborah are both the kindest people ever.
Top class.
And then I got word that he wanted me to play Darkseid.
Wow.
And weirdly, the Darkseid stuff was shot in LA. So I got to fly back from London to LA. Thank you, Warner Brothers. And Kieran Hines and I put on black lycra suits and hung out on a mocap stage. And that's not an image anyone wants in their head. And then I did multiple lots of voice stuff, face capture. The whole process took a while.
Wow.
And then, I in the fullness of time, I found out that it was all changing and that my work was not going to be a part of it. The thing I was most excited about playing the role was, oh God, I get to go to Comic-Con and meet fans and stuff. I can't wait.
Wow.
I hope I get to sign something, I really, seriously, that was my, I was like, oh God, I hope they make a toy and I can point at it and go, that's me.
That's me.
When I was in college, Patrick Stewart's son lived the next door over in the dorms, and his father would come to visit, and he had a Captain Picard figurine taped to his fridge. And I was like, man, I want a figurine, Anyway, goals, right? Life goals. So anyway, it was unfortunate. It happens. It's Hollywood. It hurt. It was sad, but I dealt with it and moved on. And then, one day Twitter exploded and I became aware of your podcast. And that's been kind of the ride.
Wow. That's really, really amazing. So, before we move on, would anyone of you guys like to ask Ray any questions so far?
I've got one, just kind of real quick to piggyback off of what he just said.
Yeah.
Just when did you see the theatrical cut of Justice League, and what was your true reaction to what you knew of the original script, and then what you saw on screen? Not only what was missing, but what was replaced?
I'm gonna say something, and I don't mean it to be inflammatory, and I'm not being bitchy, but I'm gonna say this: I've never seen it.
Oh, thank God.
Neither has Zach.
Or thank the new gods, I should say.
Hey,
thank you. Yes, I've never seen it.
You shouldn't.
Well, the thing is this: for me, it's a whole lot more than a movie. There's people. And I tend to be a little bit, second grade schoolyard loyalty. If you hurt my friends, then I don't really want a lot to do with you. And I'm not saying that against anybody. I'm not saying that against Mr. Whedon. I'm not saying that against Warner Brothers or anybody. It just happened to go that way. But the circumstance was hard for a lot of people, and that made me sad. And so I didn't really feel a strong desire to see it. Also, I mean, honestly, get cast in this really, really cool role, do all this work, and then be told that it's not in it. Do you really want to go see?
Yeah.
I mean, definitely not.
I wasn't. I'm not made of that strong stuff. I didn't want to be watching the movie going, right, and that's when I would have come in. You know,
Wow.
that's just a bummer. So no, I've not seen it. I'm looking forward to actually seeing it.
Okay, I've got a question. You've not seen what we have seen,
No.
but you kind of know what we're gonna see. Now that you know we're all gonna see the Snyder Cut,
Yeah.
now that we're gonna get it, do you have any intrigue to see what we have had to live with?
No, I think that's a really good question. And honestly, what I think will happen is I will see Zack's Justice League, and then I might go back and watch the other one.
We should do a comedy podcast where we do a commentary with you.
You know, and that's the thing is, I mean, I don't want to cast aspersions on that version of the film at all. I mean, because there's a lot of people who committed and worked very, very hard on those reshoots, and to disrespect them would be churlish. I don't want to do that. You know,
Leave that to me.
Okay. But no, I mean, I think that it'll be very interesting to see Zack's vision and then go back and look at where it was changed. I think it'll throw a lot of things into kind of harsh relief. I think that it'll show some real contrasts, and I think it'll be informative, but I'll be watching it after I've seen Zack's movie.
Okay. So the next question I have for you has to do with this character of Darkseid.
Mhm.
First off, do you have any history with comic books? Did you know the character before commenting? And what was your mindset of forming the character from wherever your history is with the character?
Okay, I have to admit that I was never a big comic book guy. Many of my friends were, and I've always appreciated them. You know, I'm a big believer in let people like what they like, and just because something may not be necessarily for me doesn't invalidate it. So I've always been aware of the comic books, and you know, I love Batman, and I got to see BVS at the London premiere, which was really cool.
Wow.
Yeah. Got to meet Mark Hamill at the theater that night. That was cool.
Wow.
And I loved the movie. I loved BVS.
It's a masterpiece as far as most of us here.
I'm a fan of Zack's filmmaking. I always have been. But I was not particularly aware, you know, and so I cast in this role, and that's when I went and did some research, and it was like, oh my goodness, oh boy.
Oh, yeah.
I've got to be that guy.
This is one of the greatest villains. Like, obviously, he hasn't had a cinematic turn yet, and finally we're gonna get it.
But also understand, at the time, this is before I had shot anything. At the time that I was cast in it, they were gearing up for JL2, and I knew that this was going to be kind of the intro to a much larger amount of work in the next film.
Right.
So I was pretty overwhelmed at that point. I don't want to sound like a complete toff, but honestly, my experience with Shakespeare was great to bring to bear with this. You know, with villainy and that sort of thing. And man, I got to act with Kieran Hines. That was cool.
Wow.
Now, when I say cool, what I mean is that Kieran was really cool, and I was over in the corner going, oh God, it's going to be my turn soon. I really hope I don't suck.
There are a lot of us on this podcast who are huge fans of Excalibur. So
Oh yeah. Well, and Kieran is such a great guy. Very funny, very kind, very generous. And after I finished a take and he came over and put his arm around me, it was like, well done. I was like, all right, that's great.
You know, he was one of the people who spoke publicly and put himself out there.
Yes, I saw that.
Yes, behind the Snyder Cut, saying what you saw was not what was.
No, absolutely. I was so jealous of Kieran when we were shooting because he was off as soon as he was done. He was off to shoot The Terror, the TV show about the Franklin expedition.
I love it. I watched it and I love it.
I'm obsessed with the Franklin expedition. So I was like, dude, I'm extremely jealous right now.
That series is underrated. Like I tell a
Yeah.
lot of people, if you liked Chernobyl, I think it's just as good.
Yeah.
That's just my
Yeah.
opinion, anyway.
Well, I think Kieran Hind is an absolute master at his craft. He really is, and it was a privilege to spend time with him, even in the lycra suits.
Even in the tight lycra suits. So let's get a question from Manu. Would you like to ask something?
I just wanted to. We've heard from other cast members. Lupe just mentioned Siren Hines, but how was the mood? Like just the general mood about people who worked on the film. You don't have to name anyone, but you said that I'm just wondering how people truly felt about what happened with all the work they had to do.
Well, I didn't get to talk to a lot of people after the fact. I mean, by the time it all came down, I was basically pretty much done, and the cast had all dispersed to the four winds, of course, off on other projects, and the crew were on to other projects and working. So I didn't have a lot of connection with a lot of people involved. I can tell you that the general mood was, I think more than anything else, it was kind of confusion. It was like, well, why are you doing this? Everybody on the set was very kind, very generous, very positive. Now, I've always believed that the sort of psychic well-being of any project emanates from the top down. And when you have Zach and Deb helming something, people behave really, really well. People are very polite, they're very kind, they're very outgoing, it's very warm. The feeling on the set was wonderful. And I think that when it all came down the way that it came down, it was like, well, yeah, but why are they doing all of this? Why are they redoing all of this stuff and reshooting this stuff? And what's that about? I think it was more confusion than anything else, honestly.
And for someone who has been here from the beginning, I can tell you guys that it has to do with narratives peddled by media outlets and people who have an agenda and a bias, and it shakes up the studio. When they have so much money invested and their careers on the line, people are trying to put foot on the table. It's interesting because a lot of people tend to believe we live in a meritocracy, right? It should be about what is good and what isn't, and the best should rise to the top. But film is very interesting because with film criticism and just the subjective experience of film, you can influence how people feel about a film.
Right.
So, for example, if you're going to see a film and I tell you, oh, it's the worst thing that's ever come out, the director doesn't know what he's doing, he doesn't, make stories well, the graphics are horrible. When you go, that begins to color your experience. And if you see something that's complicated, you'd be like, oh, no, it was convoluted instead of it was complex. If you see something that's sort of painterly and dark and shadowy, instead of, looking at it in a not good light, you'll say, oh, the color palette was ugly, that kind of thing. So I know you guys were very confused, but trust me, a lot of us, we've been on the ground level. We've seen we know the personalities who write these articles. We know how they would watch a movie from Marvel Studios and give it every pass in the universe. And then when a DC movie comes out, they nitpick it to bits every single day. And, work.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I think that certainly did not help. And also you have to fold into that being a studio executive is a really, really high pressure, stressful, dangerous gig. And if you are connected with a production that may not do well, there is a very real and tangible risk to your job involved in that. And so they're always going to err on the side of caution, always. And on one side of it, you can say, well, why don't you have more imagination? Why can't you allow that? And on the other side of it, it's like, yeah, I could have more imagination. It would still be a gamble. And these people are not gamblers. They want to minimize risk. So you have that. You have, we've seen, without going down this rabbit hole, but we've seen how the press in general will find a scapegoat, shall we say, and oh well, he's just bad, as opposed to purely looking at it on the merit of whatever is being done or said. and that can muddy the waters as well. I mean, I really just think it was a lot of forces came together to create the situation, which you guys and the rest of the fans have rectified.
Exactly.
So
that's
today's the day
that's
for
the beauty.
celebration.
That's the beauty in the struggle. So let's still talk more about this role that
Yeah.
we're all excited for you about. So you were cast. You're coming from a theatrical background, which, trust me, we are cinephiles here, and we know how good that is. It's such a powerful tool to bring to these roles. So you started to learn about who this villain was, who you'd never known before. So now that you know a little bit about him, you've done some history, how would you sort of describe him to someone who has no idea who Darkseid is?
Well, first of all, you think about every villain believes in their heart they're right. Okay? There's no mustache twirling, I'm being bad and it's really great. That's boring to an audience.
Yeah.
I mean, you'll see in Shakespeare's plays, oftentimes the villains will take their soliloquies to the audience. Iago in Othello has a speech, and what's he then that says I play the villain? What are you talking about? I'm not a villain. I'm doing this. This is, so Darkseid embodies all of that, of course, and he's a god.
Yeah.
So, it's, as far as baddies go, he's kind of the nuclear option.
Yeah, I agree.
And I love that. I love that he's so powerful that it's like, oh God, how are we going to beat this? Because that's where the really good story is. How are we going to beat this guy? It's exciting. All I did in playing him was just, I'm right. I'm right.
I like that.
That's all. What are you talking about?
Yourself one bit.
Absolutely. People don't understand me. I get a lot of bad press. Ask Darkseid about his kittens. No, but it's just a commitment to whatever it is. Nice. The bad guy never thinks he's the bad guy, or seldom does. Seldom thinks he's the bad guy.
Does. I mean,
the greater the villain, the greater the hero.
Precisely.
Absolutely. We talk about that, and we know you're in good hands because we have these discussions. Zach does villains so well.
Oh my God, yes he does.
So well.
Yes, he does.
Remember his Ozymandias from Watchmen, who has the monologue about, am I a comic book villain? I've already blown up the city. Remember Zod?
Well, I mean, how about Xerxes from 300?
Xerxes from 300?
So I've got a question. Out of all of Zach's villains, who's your favorite? And also, maybe, who might Darkseid resemble the most?
Okay, that's a really good question. I mean, I would have to say that, out of all of Zach's villains, my personal favorite begins with a D and ends with Arkside.
Hey!
Who does he resemble? Who does he resemble? That's interesting. I don't know that Darkseid is such this monolithic force. He's so, who do you compare Darkseid to? You can't. You can't.
If you could, so when I think Darkseid, I think maybe a mix of Xerxes, that kind of I want to take everything over, and Zod, that sheer power and strategy and ability. Would I be along the right lines?
Well, obviously that character in 300 believed himself to be a god, and was larger and different than anyone else around him. He was a god among mortals. So I think in that way you could certainly draw a line of similarity between those two characters. He's a god.
I like it.
Could you compare Darkseid to a Shakespearean villain?
Ooh, look at you with the questions. God, I'm right now flipping through a canon I have in my head, like no. Weirdly, I don't necessarily think so. Most of Shakespeare's villains are wonderful in that they are human. They are the same as the protagonist, and will oftentimes, as I said before, they'll say to the audience, like, watch this, look at this math that I've worked out and how I'm going to undo the good guy. Watch how this happens. This is going to be amazing. I'm really clever. This is my art. This is incredible. Darkseid, it's a whole different deal. It's to me anyway, I'm sure there'll be a million people who are screaming right now, no, he's like Yago. No, and that's fine. I think that, Darkseid is whatever you need him to be. But being a god, being so completely outside of the world, the realm of what we know as the familiar lens, just that makes him scary. Do you know? Mm-hmm. Now, how do you play that? Well, you certainly don't. I don't think you would approach Darkseid in the same way that you would approach a mortal villain. But you also, you can't be above it all and that sort of thing. But then, obviously, we know within Darkseid's family, there's struggles, there's fights, there's arguments, there's rivalries, and there was a good scene of me and Steppenwolf having words.
On that note, talking about characters in Apocalypse, we also broke news to the fandom that Peter Guinness played Darkseid's high priest, second in command, Darkseid. Yes. So what was that experience like working with him?
Peter Guinness is a fantastic actor and a terrific guy. Honestly, I so enjoyed working with the two of them. I wanted to just go to a pub and sit and have pints all night and settle the world's problems. Brilliant actors, brilliant guys.
Nice.
And played, and watching those two on the set and realizing that pretty soon my number was going to be up and it was going to be my turn to jump in the scene was, I will say, moderately intimidating. Wow. They're damn good, It's like, oh, great, the guitar player's here. You get to go on after Hendrix.
Wow.
So to get their praise was the best.
Wow. That's incredible. That's absolutely incredible.
I've just been really interested listening to these responses, and a lot of the questions I had have been answered. And I know, Ray, you probably can't get into too much in the way of specifics, but I've right. I guess I'm really relieved and glad to hear that we're going to see a villain with conviction that believes they're right, and I'm very much looking forward to seeing that world with Steppenwolf and Darkseid, and I'm just wondering, in generalities, can you say, is that a major component of this version of the film from what you know? Is it?
I don't really know. And I would be loath to say, and even talking about like scenes that I've done, I don't know what's going to be in the final cut. I don't know what's going to be in the final version. And also, part of it is I don't want to talk about it too much because we've waited so long to see it. I don't want to give anything away, and I can't really say how much of that is in there. Obviously, I remember when I did Almost Famous, Cameron Crowe came to me at the wrap party and was like, I've got 5 hours of movie that I have to edit. And so I knew right when he said that, the part that I had, the role that I played was going to be cut down immensely. And it was, and that was fine. That's what happens. So I don't know at this juncture how much Darkseid will be in this film. No way of knowing.
Okay. So I take it you're not one of the ones who's seen the Snyder Cut in its current state. Then obviously.
No, I have not.
Okay. Well, I am definitely looking forward to finding out. The only other question I had for you, and you did touch on this a lot already, but I wanted to ask you about the the range of emotions from the time you found out you got the part, to the time that you found out you weren't in the film.
Yeah.
And then you've touched on that, and if you have anything more to say on that, by all means, I'd love to hear it. And then specifically, at what point did you start to believe that this wasn't just wishful fan thinking, that this might actually happen, and that we might finally get to see your work in this film?
Well, that's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, the range of emotions was, a bungee jump. It was every extreme. And I had resigned myself to it being just another, well, that didn't work out. What a shame, move on. I've got these sci-fi books I have to narrate, whatever. Then I became aware of this movement, and honestly, initially, I loved and admired what you guys were doing. And the kindness that I received on Twitter was just unprecedented. It was just amazing. And, but I still was like, this is amazing and incredible and wonderful. I keep saying the word amazing. I used to do Shakespeare. I do words for a living, and I can't stop saying amazing. God damn it. Me, damn it. The movement was so impassioned and so clear. And as I've said before, so kind, very positive fight, and I admired that. But I didn't think that it was going to happen. You just don't hear, this doesn't happen. This doesn't happen in Hollywood. And look what you did. It did happen.
So what, like you just mentioned that this doesn't happen in Hollywood. What do you think was the difference here in your experience? What was it that you felt the movement did that set it aside from all the others?
I think it's a mix of things. The thing that I noticed about the movement, the thing that I noticed about the fans is, for all of the banners, for all of the airplanes flying over Comic-Con, for all of the appearing on online forums and doing battle with, people who are like, it's never going to happen, get over it, move on.
That was a great impression.
That was a good accent. That was good. I love it.
Thank you very much.
That's how I hear.
I know at least 7 people who speak like that. Yeah.
No, like in my head, that's how I hear them whenever I read their tweets. It's that same voice.
The number of people that said Warner Brothers will never spend another dime on this movie. I mean, how many times have we heard that over 2.5 years?
Yeah. I mean, I read it all the time too. Also, once the news broke, going online and reading these comments about me, because nobody really knows who I am, that was sobering. There's no way it's going to happen. He never would have cast, he would want somebody who's a good actor, somebody who's been in a movie or something. I was like, wow.
I remember seeing those tweets. Yeah.
Oh, that was lovely to read. The thing that set this particular movement apart was that it was very high profile. It was very vocal, but it was always kind. It was never strident. It was never, standing outside some place with a sign and screaming and yelling and, will annoy them into submission. It never was that. When it came time and I saw that money was being raised for suicide prevention, it was like, well, of course these people are doing this. Absolutely. That's the soul of what this movement is. What I think sets it apart, what I think was a major contributor in this happening, what I think made the people who make such decisions take notice, was the organization, the committedness, and the kindness. Y'all were never rude, which is to be commended.
Thank you. That means a lot, because I've been called so many things. Like, it was.
I think you were going to say the same thing I was, Manu. Just the way we've been painted as a toxic fandom, and that this sets a horrible precedent because they're rewarding our toxicity when you've seen nothing but in this movement. Not to mention the generalizations they make about us that could not be further from the truth when you look at our international fandom. And
I got into I came close to my first ever Twitter fight, early on, when somebody was on trolling, and I just wrote to them, what is so wrong about allowing people to like what they like? Why is this such a bad thing? Why can you not just let people enjoy what they want? Never got a response from that guy about that. No, but that to me was the thing, was that, I mean, Undaunted. Y'all put up with a lot. I read some hostility online, and everybody just kept going. I started seeing things that were above and beyond what I had ever seen any sort of organization, any, like, most people get as far as let's fill out a petition and then they drop it.
Mm-hmm.
Y'all didn't do that. When I started seeing announcements about, okay, we're going to be mega tweeting on this day, I had friends, authors and audiobook narrators, who were sending me pictures from Comic-Con of, like, dude standing at the bus stop with the banners around it. I was like, I know. These people will not be denied. That's when I was like, oh, this has got legs. This is going somewhere. And then little trickles would happen when, Zach is not a vain man. So when he's dropping little things, stills from the production and things like that, he's not doing it to serve himself. And he's not doing it as a tease, and it's not an empty gesture. When I saw that happening, I was like, this is going somewhere. I don't know if it's going to have the outcome that everyone would like, but this has been noticed. Also, honestly, when I started to see some of the vehemence and the backlash against you guys, is when I went, oh, this really is a force. This really does matter. Certainly it matters enough for somebody to get on and vent their spleen, in a forum or on Twitter. This is, so it was kind of a momentum thing. Honestly, though, I have to say, like, from the beginning, from the first message I got from you, Chris, where it was like, hey, listen, this thing just got announced, and, and I was like, oh God, please don't tell anybody, please, and it was all about respecting privacy, respecting what I could and could not say, and all of that. And just the way you guys conducted yourself at that point, I was committed. I was like, these people deserve to get what they want more than anybody else I've seen.
I have a series of fun questions for you for us to, wrap up.
Okay. Now there's no math involved. There's no math involved. Right?
No math involved. Okay,
great.
So we're going to be fine.
I stay up all night studying for a blood test. So yeah. All right.
There you go. First question. This is a question we ask all our guests, and the fate of the world is dependent on it. Okay.
Okay.
Does pineapple belong on pizza?
Hell no.
Yes.
Oh my God!
Lupe loses again.
That broke my heart.
I'm so sorry, man. But again. Wait, let me clarify that. Hell no for me. If you like it, go for it, brother. More for you.
I'll take it.
I am half Italian. I will eat all of the pineapple on my pizza.
Really?
Use the pineapple as my crust. I don't care. It's delicious.
Wow.
I'm utterly shocked that it's even a thing. Pineapple, without question, belongs on a pizza.
It's that mix of sweetness and saltiness. It's perfect. It's I don't understand it.
The key to pineapple is having green olives and hot peppers with it.
It's a culinary art.
God, I need to lie down. This is disturbing.
I do probably have to say, though, I love pineapple on pizza, but I don't like wine or olives. So I guess I can't claim that too much.
I don't like olives either.
Or cilantro. Cilantro makes me sick to my stomach.
Brandon, I'm not at all Italian, and wine and olives is about a third of my diet.
That makes sense.
Well, there you go.
There you go. All right. Next question. If you have to choose between these two powers, the ability to be able to see into the future, or the ability to be able to change the past, which one would you take?
Ooh, see into the future.
Nice. Okay.
The past,
any particular reason?
Yeah, the past is what I am. I am a result of my past. All the scars, weird marks, and strange thoughts are who I am. Why would I deny my heritage in such a way? Seeing into the future would be good because then I could avoid certain things. I don't want to avoid anything from my past. And there's some bad stuff in my past, but it's a part of who I am now. And I'm kind of proud of it.
I like that. You guys, would anybody like to chime in on this? Which one do you guys think is better? Personally, I would like to change the past because I could go back and, like make sure that Hitler didn't like do stuff. But I'm a selfless person, so.
But I always think about that. Like, you get in a time machine, you go back and you kill Hitler. What if there was another dude next to Hitler who just never got his chance and was 1,000 times worse?
The ripple effect, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say neither, because to me they're both the same thing. If you can see into the future, that means you're trying to change your present, which will eventually become your past, in which case you still didn't grow from anything. So live the life to the fullest you have now, and make decisions based on how you think that they're going to play out, not how you know they will.
Wow. You just Kobayashi Maru'd that whole thing.
I know.
That was really
like. All right.
That was
Next
great.
Question. What would you prefer? A pint or a cocktail?
Pint.
A pint. There you
pint
go.
Of stout.
When you come to the UK, a pint of stout from
pint
Chris.
Of stout, baby. Oh yeah, absolutely. Right. Well, I've already discussed this with Chris. Many, many pints followed by loud declarations over kebab.
Absolutely. Let's do it. And last question. So we have this thing that we call #exiled for a reason. Now, the reason why we call ourselves Film Exiles is because we're proud of our film takes. There's no take like a hot take. We believe that, whatever you love, you should love. There's nothing like a guilty pleasure. So for example, I think that Batman v Superman is one of the greatest movies ever made.
Cool.
And so Film Twitter has exiled me to the cinematic wastelands for it. So we're inviting you to walk over the hot coals, so to speak. It's a rite of initiation into the Film Exiles. Give us your hottest film take that will get you exiled from Film Twitter, and you'll become one of the Film Exiles.
The movie Twister.
Okay.
I loved that movie. I grew up in Indiana around tornadoes. I absolutely loved it. And I haven't heard anyone speak positively about that film.
Well, you're the first. And that is a hot take. That's sizzling. That is
Philip Seymour Hoffman in that movie is just wonderful.
Okay,
man.
yeah, I know he is.
Welcome to the suck zone.
I was sat at a table next to Philip Seymour Hoffman when we were shooting Almost Famous, and I complimented him on Twister, and the look he gave me told me everything I needed to know. I mean, and I still kick myself about it. Philip Seymour Hoffman has this incredible body of work, but I thought, as an actor, I thought he was damn good in that movie, and he looked at me like I had 3 heads.
That's incredible.
Any film with Bill Paxton is fine by me.
I'll agree with that. Absolutely.
There you go. So that's it. The initiation is complete. You've been exiled into the cinematic wastelands. You are a film exile.
Thank you very much. I'm very proud to be so.
So, Ray, have you got anything coming up that you want to tell people about? Any projects that you're really excited about?
Well, I don't know what my future is. I know I wouldn't change my past, but I have no idea what my future is with regards to this. I'm optimistic, but I'm also very happy about some projects that I've got, sort of on the boil right now. Probably the thing that is most exciting to me right now is this full cast audio production of Neil Gaiman's Sandman that I did at Audible UK Studios.
I'm excited.
The cast is uniformly excellent. There's a lot of names that people know and quite a lot of names that people don't know, and everybody was a friggin' genius in it. I have heard some roughs of it, and it's marvelous. It's going to be, for people who are fans of the Sandman, this is done right. Neil has been involved in the production every step of the way, and it was incredibly exciting to be a part of recording it, and I can't wait for it to come out.
Nice. Awesome.
Well, I'm a big fan of Sandman, so I'll definitely be buying that.
I played like 14 different roles in it. I'm stoked. Wow. It was so fun.
Wow.
I've got an Audible credit waiting to go for it. Sorry, did you say, is it July that it comes out, I believe? June, July?
June,
You know?
July, I think so. Don't quote me on that, but I think so.
I've set one aside for it. Looking forward to it.
It's but oh god, it's just a monster. It's incredible. Yeah, it's really fun. And then there's and then there's a variety of books that I'm narrating that are coming out that are really cool, and it's gonna be a good summer, and maybe even in the autumn I can go outside.
What's that like?
I don't know.
What is this outside of which you speak?
Well,
it's strange forbidden land.
Exactly.
I'm a hiker and it's gorgeous. I couldn't live without it.
I know. If I was in England, I'd be outside all the time. LA, not so much.
So before we go, would you guys like to say goodbye to Ray and give him some well wishes? Let's start with Paul.
Yeah. So Ray, it was a pleasure to meet you and talk to you for the first time. I loved hearing what you had to say today. I'm even more excited for the film now, and just want to thank you for coming on with us. And I wish you the best of luck in future. And I can't wait to see you in Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Thank you very much.
Chris, the floor is yours.
We've spoken a few times, and my feelings for you, Ray, and
yeah, bruv.
You're such a great person. You've helped us so much. I'll only ever have admiration and thanks for the generosity that you've given us. You really pushed us at a period of time where not much was going on, and you embracing us all and giving us that extra push last year was fantastic. And honestly, thank you. And
absolutely,
you know my feelings towards you. And
it's been an absolute privilege. It's been an absolute privilege. Thanks for having me along for the ride.
No, pleasure.
All right, Brandon.
I mean, just like anybody else said, it's just thank you for being part of this with the fans. Yeah, it's not very often something like this comes along, and it's even less often that outside of a single retweet from a creator or an actor or whatever, you don't get to talk with somebody in a podcast or converse with them on Twitter, just back and forth relentlessly. And it's just part of what made this entire experience special. Even if it was hard, the greatest things in life are worth fighting for. Yep. And we fought for it, and you were there with us, and you didn't have to be. And that it means so much that you and everybody else that used the hashtag, that was part of that production, that kept us going. Even in some of the really dark times where we thought it was over, you were there, and it means so much to me and to all of us. So thank you.
Means a lot to me too. Privilege has been mine entirely.
Thank you. Adrian.
Oh, I just echo everything everybody said. Thank you so much, Ray, for the support and your generosity. And knowing that you haven't seen the Snyder Cut yet, boy, do I look forward to watching that, knowing that we'll all be watching it for the first time together.
Yeah.
I really can't wait.
Yeah,
I'm looking forward to it. We'll have a giant party.
Yeah, absolutely. Manu.
I'll have pineapple on my pizza.
It's all yours.
Manu.
Well, I just want to thank you, Ray, for doing everything that you've done. I'm like Vinaldo mentioned earlier, I'm one half that wrote that article that woke you up scared in the middle of the morning. And I'm really glad that I got this opportunity to talk with you. And I really want to say that day that we got the word out about you, it was just wonderful to see how the fans took to you and how you took to them. It was such a great day. Got everyone excited and everybody psyched up, and I think that it opened up the idea of how different Zach's movie was to the movie that we had already seen, and that meant a lot to a lot of people. But I want to thank you for your kindness and your patience and everything that you've done for the movement and for the Exiles, and honestly, it's something that I'll never forget. And that whatever you do, you'll have at least one person's going to support anything. I
appreciate it, man. So, and it's great for me to be able to personally thank you for writing that article. I mean, it was a rude awakening that day, but it's been brilliant ever since.
Well, I'm glad because we were talking about it like, man, we gonna mess up this dude's life. Like, like this is crazy. Like, are we just gonna put him on blast? You were so great, and it was just such a great day. And thank you, and Ronaldo has told me so often how kind you are, and just being able to do this with you, I can already tell how right he is. I mean, he's usually right, but but so thank you.
Thank you, man. Thank you.
Yeah, and from me to you, I echo everything everyone has said. I don't even know where to start. It's overwhelming, the feeling of what we've accomplished. And, you've repeatedly said, it's a day for you guys. It's also a day for you. You are part of the Release the Snyder Cut campaign.
Well, I really appreciate that. You
are. I mean, you've been so generous with your time. You've been very optimistic. You've been kind. And as Brandon said, there were laws and time in which nothing was happening. The studio completely ignored us, or they heard, and we got nothing. But being able to communicate with people like you, it just kept us going. It really did keep us going.
I got to say, it was a real bright spot for me. I remember thinking early on, like, well, the movie won't be released, or my part in the movie won't be released, but gosh, at least I get to talk to these guys, Wow. And that was a real silver lining.
Wow. Thank you so much. Thank you. And before we leave, I just want to drop a little bit of speculation. So I've been reading up on what Zack is going to do. And we all knew he was planning a 5-film arc for his whole Superman saga with Man of Steel, Batman, Superman, then a couple of Justice League movies.
Right.
With it being on HBO Max, from what I'm reading, it seems like they're going to beef it up even more. And so while we were possibly only going to get maybe one Justice League movie because, they were saying something about Justice League 1 and 2 being made into one movie, I think you're going to get even more.
Well, from your mouth to God's ear, and I hope they've got my phone number.
I'm telling you, like, I've been reading up on them, my fingers are crossed, and I'm putting all the positive energy into the world, and I'm speaking it into existence.
Thank you.
You are going to have an even bigger role than you would have had before this.
Well, I hope so. I'll tell you, that would be really wonderful.
Blessings come in strange ways, as they say.
Man. Well, I guess I better hit the gym then, because I'm sitting around eating. That's no good.
Yes, sir. All right. So that
you
brings
guys are
us
great.
Thank
Today's
you very
a day
much.
to celebrate. I hope you all raise a glass of whatever.
That'll be
Next on the agenda.
We are getting toasted tonight. So, okay, we're all leaving the podcast right now. You guys give us your social medias and where people can contact you online. I have been yours, Lupe. You can find me on Twitter at LiveLoveLupe and on Vero at LiveLoveLupe as well. Paul?
You can reach me on Twitter at _Paul_P.
Chris?
You can find me on Twitter as well at Vinaldo7.
And Brandon?
You can find me at _meatball_84.
Nice. Adrian?
You can find me on Twitter at TruthLoveFaith.
I love your handle, Truth, Love, and the American Way. And Manu, where can we find you?
They can find me at ManUnited0710.
Wonderful. And you can find all of us on the Film Exiles. And Ray, where can we find you on social media?
Twitter, Ray__Porter.
Yes, everybody go follow him, support him, shower him with love and affection. He's an awesome guy. He deserves the best in the world. This has been a special episode of ENN, and we are out. Until next time, stay exiled.